Imagine a cartoon from 1963 that treats colonialism not as an exotic backdrop, but as a brutal human drama. In the opening scene of The African Tale, a joyful white elephant, symbolizing a colonial invader, grins broadly as it brings gifts, cigarettes, and glossy magazines to a black man living alone in the African jungle. The scene is almost cheerful, but there's an unsettling edge. We know something is off. This unexpected image, a smiling colonial beast in a Soviet animation, is our hook. What is this story? It turns out to be a piercing allegory of imperialism, remarkable for its era. In a medium where Western cartoons often mocked or caricatured Africans, The African Tale dared to show its black hero with dignity and depth. It raises a question that lingers: how did a short Soviet cartoon come to portray Africa's struggle so boldly? To understand why The African Tale exists, we must set the clock to the early 1960s. This was the high noon of decolonization. In 1960 alone, 17 African nations won independence. By 1963, the year this cartoon premiered, Kenya had just shattered British colonial rule, electing Jomo Kenyatta, the former author of the story on which the film is based, as its president. Globally, the Cold War powers were vying for influence. The Soviet Union, which had formerly shown little interest in Africa, now saw an opening. The USSR took little interest before the 1950s, but decolonization of Africa offered opportunities to expand their influence. Soviet leaders publicly championed national liberation, offering aid and ideological support to anti-colonial movements. Artistic propaganda was part of this. Posters and films celebrated African heroes and denounced Western imperialism. For example, a 1961 stamp proclaims freedom to the nations of Africa. By contrast, much of Western media at the time either ignored African realities or depicted them in the old colonial cliché. As one scholar notes, US cartoon studios like Disney and Warner Brothers created many racist cartoons through the mid-1960s, perpetuating gross stereotypes of black people. In that environment, The African Tale stands out as astonishingly ahead of its time. A modern viewer marvels that while Looney Tunes was still relying on minstrel show humor, this Soviet film depicts a black man as an actual human being. The setting, a Soviet studio in Moscow, seems unlikely for such a compassionate portrayal. This contrast is no accident. It reflects the Cold War narrative that framed the USSR as an ally of oppressed peoples, in opposition to the West. As one researcher succinctly puts it, the cartoon reflects the struggle of a black man against colonizers for freedom and independence. And indeed it does, right from the very first frames. The story of The African Tale is a concise fable drawn from a real African parable, The Gentleman of the Jungle by Jomo Kenyatta, written in 1938.
Что тут происходит? Спросил неожиданно появившийся лев.
Он отнял у меня хижину.
Как ты смеешь клеветать на моего лучшего друга? Под суд!